Recapping the early games in Week 6 across the National Football League, it is the Audible. It is Cecil, Lammey, and Sigmund Bloom, and it is New England hot Bailey Zappi talk as they get the win over Cleveland. I thought Cleveland was good.
Yeah.
38-15 is the final score, and they put it on them. The Patriots did. Of course, lots of Ramondre Stevenson. We knew that. Of course, without Damian Harris, it was going to be a ton of Ramondre Stevenson. It was 19 for 76. 2 rushing touchdowns. Could have had another one that they stopped short. Also 4 catches, 15 yards. You saw Tyquan Thornton, the skinny rookie, getting his first touchdown. Of course, their second round pick, 3 for 16 and a touchdown on the ground. And then 4 for 37 and a receiving touchdown. So there you go for Thornton. Hunter Henry, it was his day. They used him a little bit more, a lot more. 4 for 61 and a touch. Jonnu Smith, 2 for 61. Jacoby Myers, 4 for 60, no touchdown. Shocker. And then Devontae Parker, 4 for 64, which means Bailey Zappi went 309, 2 touchdowns, no INTs. So a good day from the young man as they had their way pretty much with the Browns.
Yeah, the Patriots seemingly cease on a humbling tour, humbling me. So I'm not going to doubt the Belichick football factory anymore, no matter what kind of hiring decisions or tweaks he makes to his hires to make sure that his guys get paid extra paychecks. But it's the paychecks are coming in if you thought this offense was going to be this good. And the Cleveland defense was also horrendous. So look, Bailey Zappi is showing a lot. Now, it was against a defense that was allowing wide open receivers, not really getting a lot of pressure, but still, he's executing. That's so much more than you can say for some quarterbacks that have been around the league for years. So I'm not saying there's a true quarterback controversy, but if Mac Jones' development stalls out, Bailey Zappi's given them something to think about. Ramondre Stevenson, we knew this was going to work out and hit. You did get a garbage time score to pad it, but that was great. And then, of course, no one really standing out in the passing game as far as fantasy. Hunter Henry with Jonnu Smith out there and breaking a long run, still being very relevant. No Nelson Aguilar, even though it was a productive game for the passing game, they spread the ball around. But Cease, I'm sorry to report, our quest to figure out who's good and who's not good didn't make a lot of progress today.
Not really. A lot of progress.
No,
today.
not a lot of progress. So New England, they humbled Detroit, they humbled Cleveland, and obviously this new program, the Patricia Judge program on offense, obviously the defense, even without J.C. Jackson, at least against quarterbacks that aren't top quarterbacks in the league, are again humbling them. And they're going to hit Chicago next week, which is, speaking of, humbling a team. Today, Belichick ties Papa Bear Hallis, which rhymes with Bring on Atlanta, Bring on Dallas from the Super Bowl Shuffle, because we're talking about Chicago. Got to at least bring up the one good old day for most people that are alive right now. And he ties them in victories. So history today as Belichick beats the first team that made him a head coach.
Okay, let's go Cleveland side. It's supposed to be better. Nick Chubb, 12-56. And again, this at halftime was 10-6.
Yeah.
So you still had plenty of time to run the ball. And, well, then it was 14 third quarter points, 14 fourth quarter points by the Patriots to put them over the top. Jacoby Brissett, not a good day, 21-45, 266, 1 touchdown, 2 INTs. The touchdown was Amari Cooper, 4 for 44 and a touch. Donovan Peoples-Jones, 4 for 74. David Njoku, they're figuring it out with him, 3 for 58 as they continue to use him more. And then not as much Kareem Hunt. So there you go. Here's how Cleveland loses this game.
And you really see this was one of the games. Again, these teams have had more than one season within a season, and we're 6 weeks in. There was a time that we thought Cleveland was good. They were only losing on bad beats to a team like the Jets, right? Whatever you think about that Browns-Jets outcome on the scoreboard, the Browns were probably the better team that day, but they certainly don't look like the better team today, not even remotely in the same echelon of ability as the Jets. As Jacoby Brissett, you see where he's coming up short now. He looked so smooth with this offense when Nick Chubb was setting everything up. And it wasn't like Chubb was really contained or thwarted. Like you said, Cease, they just didn't really get him on track and setting things up. You had an early interception for Brissett. You had a Brissett short on a sneak in the red zone on 4th down and settling for field goals when they did get a few plays from Njoku or a long pass interference. And it's just not enough, even to beat the Bailey Zappi Patriots, which are going to score more points because your defense is not helping you. You did have Amari Cooper with a nice garbage time touchdown. And that's it, Cease. I mean, again, there was a point, I think even going to last week, you'd say, well, they lost to Atlanta. Well, Atlanta, I'm not sure about what that loss means now, right? They're losing these games. Now, this is the first one where they were truly soundly beat. And this is a team with the arrow pointing down, of course, with that third act with Deshaun Watson in the current act, a game against Baltimore, another team with question marks over their head. Question marks everywhere today, Cease.
Yeah, we'll have to be careful, Bloom. The show within the show is always about the Broncos. It is Broncos show. But it also traces back to years ago in our first season of the Audible in 2006. I got in trouble for calling Cleveland the armpit of America. and Joe messaged me. He's like, hey, buddy, could you not make fun of where people live, buddy? And I was like, okay, buddy.
Right.
So be careful when you say garbage
town. About Florida.
Yeah. Be careful. Be careful when you say garbage town. We don't need to offend anybody. Out there.
No garbage town specifically.
Okay, there you go. Let's move on to one that, I thought it was going to be different. 28-14, Atlanta over the 49ers. 28-14. Okay, here we go. 49ers side. Of course, Jimmy Garoppolo throwing picks. That's what he does. 2 touchdowns, 2 INTs for Garoppolo, 296 yards in this contest. And then you see Brandon Ayuk with both of those touchdowns, 8 for 83 and 2 touchdowns. George Kittle, 8 for 83. Debo, 7 for 79 and then 2 for 11 on the ground. Jeff Wilson, 7 for 25. Had that fumble. They never really trusted him. Tevin Coleman, they didn't do anything with him there. And then again, Jimmy G, a couple times a game, he's going to throw it up to the other team. And Atlanta knew that and they took advantage of it.
This was just an odd game, really.
Yeah. Yep.
Looking at it on paper, it felt like even with the injury San Francisco had on defense, they were going to have enough going for them on offense, the way their offense has been playing, to really control this game. And there were a couple of drives that everything came easy for the San Fran offense. It was just simple. The drives that ended with the Ayuk touchdowns, it was just easy. It looked like this was going to be how the day would go. They did have that Wilson fumble return for a touchdown. And like you said, Cease, maybe that just shook their confidence in Wilson in the running game. And they put a lot more of this game on Jimmy Garoppolo's shoulders. And there's the deep ball this time, Ray McCloud dropped it as opposed to the one that he missed Emmanuel Sanders on in the Super Bowl. Then you just saw this offense really get bogged down. Then in the fourth quarter, and doesn't this just encapsulate Jimmy Garoppolo, an 8-minute drive in the fourth quarter when you're down 14 points and they get 0 points out of it. They possess the ball for 8 minutes. It's almost like there's no excuse for having an 8-minute drive in the fourth quarter when you're down 2 touchdowns. You should have some urgency, right? How can you possibly run that much clock when you're down 2 touchdowns? And it was just
because of Jimmy, because Kyle Shanahan wants to score on every play. Like every play option design that Shanahan has, there's a scoring play if it hits right. The reason why they have an 8-minute drive in the fourth quarter because it's Jimmy.
Because of Jimmy. Well, and okay, so you did get a drive, and this is something developing for fantasy, right? If this defense, they didn't have any of their defensive line starters for this game. Now, it could be temporary, but if this defense is allowing them to get in these kind of game scripts where it's on Jimmy's shoulders, which they don't really want, that's good for Ayuk, it's good for Kittle, it's good for Debo to an extent, not good for Jeff Wilson. But again, Cease, 2-3 weeks ago, offense is humming, defense looks like it's best in the NFC. This team looked like they were a team to contend with. In this game against Atlanta, who we considered and also ran no matter what their results look like, right?
Yeah.
And we'll talk a little more about that. San Francisco really gets soundly beat, really thoroughly beat in this game. And now they have to play Kansas City. So speaking of Emmanuel Sanders and Super Bowls and things like that. So, see, it's very odd. I think I can think back to many years of us doing the recap show. And never in week 6, this feels like week 2. Like, I guess it really is like September's the preseason, because this just feels like the very beginning of the actual season. I still don't know what's going on.
Yeah, maybe by November, maybe.
Right?
We're in the middle of October. I have no idea what's going on because Atlanta looked good. Marcus Mariota looked good, even though he only threw 14 times. Like, seriously, Atlanta boat races you, and it's when your quarterback throws 14 times. They run the ball 40 times. Caleb Huntley, Bloom, I got a little bit of Ironhead feel
Yeah.
watching Caleb Huntley. A little bit. That's a name we
Connor
really.
Hayward had a big
Yeah.
moment for the
Yeah.
Steelers too, so we got
Yeah, we
Ironhead
did.
on the mind. Yeah.
There we go. Got a little Hayward love, that's for sure. But Caleb Huntley, 16 of 59 on the ground. Tyler Algier, 15 for 51. There they are, splitting time. Marcus Mariota, they can't stop him. 6 for 50 and a rushing touchdown. 2 passing touchdowns. Again, only throwing it 14 times. McCoyle Pruitt gets that first touchdown. And everyone's like, oh, they go to a tight end. Has to be Pruitt. Well,
Right.
they went back to Pitts. 3 for 19 and a touch. So that's enough. Drake London, 3 for 40. Whatever. Olamide Zacchaeus,
Right.
4 for 58. They threw it 14 times. And they ran it 40. But they won.
Yeah. And again, there are winnable games that got away from them earlier this year. And then there are games that they pulled out. So are they good? I don't know. It kind of depends on the mode they can keep the game in. And like you said, Cease, maybe that's the ideal number of pass attempts for Marcus Mariota. 14 pass attempts. And you saw him again playing with urgency as a runner, like just using his mobility, his legs to make plays when the offense needed it, making good decisions, being disciplined with the ball. And of course, they're going to run the ball. Caleb Huntley is a really good fit for this offense, the way he runs the ball, right? And there's twin stories here happening, right? For fantasy, that's the easier story to diagnose, which is as long as Atlanta's competitive, you're going to hate everything about this team for fantasy, right? Except maybe Marcus Mariota, but when he's bad, he's really bad. So he's like a best ball play. I mean, there's not really anything useful here. Drake London, yes, Kyle Pitts got a touchdown. Okay, that's your ceiling, right? I mean, that's it. Like Bubba Franks. I mean, that's what Kyle Pitts is in this offense. Because Arthur Smith, here's the other story, Cease. Arthur Smith has their attention, right? I mean, obviously there's some culture or something going on in the locker room. They got the us against the world mentality. And they're playing with a lot of pride, really. And I think they're feeding off of all of us talking about how they're not good. You saw that, and maybe how I criticize coaches for paying attention to what we're saying. If you can use it as a motivating tactic, and I think Arthur Smith has, now you have, so, Cease, was it the losses on the defensive line? Certainly that doesn't help you when you're trying to slow down the running game. Not that it was a dominant day for the running game or the offensive line for Atlanta. Emmanuel Mosley's on IR now, right, in the secondary. Or was it just that when you attack San Francisco this way, or maybe a lot of NFL defenses that are geared to stop the pass and get after the passer, right? And when you attack them this way, they're just like, huh? Wait, I have to have a physical clash on every play? Right? I have to bring this.
We don't tackle anymore.
Right? So it's just an interesting thing to see, Cease, is the pendulum effect of the NFL. And Arthur Smith he sees what he has, and this is what he can do with it. And it's going to be a pain for teams. And Cease, I don't want to say that San Francisco's soft. I don't want to say any NFL player is soft or team is soft, but certainly teams are going to find out something when they play Atlanta this year. And this is why Cordell Patterson was the perfect point of the spear. So again, you're just, I don't know. I don't know what to make of this team week to week. Like they're going to play Cincinnati this week. And I don't know what to make of Cincinnati. I don't know what to make of the NFL, except that I think Buffalo's good, but maybe I'll be proven wrong by that by the time we're done recording.
Yeah, we shall see. As Del J says in the chat room, newsflash, Packers suck, Packers suck, Packers suck. They don't really suck, but my God, could it be a little better, please? For Aaron Rodgers' sake, can it be a little bit better? But the New York Jets, we all got to tip our cap to the New York Jets. 27-10, the final score, and the Jets are getting it done. It's simply fantastic. Let's talk about Zach Wilson and company. Wilson going 18 passes. There's your key, Bloom. Run it 30 times. Have Breece Hall. There's a key, right? 20 for 116, 1 rushing touchdown for Breece Hall. Couple catches, 5 yards. Michael Carter, 6 for 41 in this one, as well as a catch for 6 yards. Braxton Berrios with a rushing touchdown. Corey Davis, 2 for 52. CJ Uzomah, 2 for 17. Why am I reading the receivers when Zach Wilson threw for 110 yards? But with the defense, with the special teams, and with that belief that Robert Saleh has this team at 4-2.
Yeah, 4-2. Woo. Another one. And it's the magical thinking, Cease, because again, they had no business from a win probability standpoint. They had no business beating the Browns. They had no business beating them, and look what they've turned it into. Magical thinking, momentum, confidence. Robert Saleh having the attention of his players, right? Culture. And this is fall. It's officially fall on the calendar, but this was one of those fall weather games. Cold, rain, just miserable, nasty weather to be out in. And the Jets are built for that. It's kind of weird. It's kind of weird because they spent so much on their wide receivers and Zach Wilson, but actually this is a running game team. This is a LaFleur team, right? A LaFleur offense. It's a running. I mean, it's funny because they were playing the Packers, a floor versus a floor, right? And the Packers have just as good of a running back, a better running back combo. Maybe not as young, but at least in terms of what they've accomplished or the contrast that you can show. But they out-floored the Patriots. I'm sorry, the Packers. And yes, again, for fantasy. So again, this is a problem for fantasy because if this team's a winning team, a competitive team, and their mode is going through the backfield, then what do you have in Garrett Wilson? We have in Elijah Moore. The one play made was by Corey Davis. Doesn't even matter. Zach Wilson's like Rex Grossman, Cease. Just don't lose the game, kid. Right? And what does this team do? They get a block punt touchdown, right? Braxton Berrios scores on a reverse, and not a reverse like the goal line, like a jet sweep, but like from 20 yards out. And Breece Hall scores on some play where he starts out at slot receiver, and then they basically move everything out like it's going to be a wide receiver screen off to his side, but he takes the ball on a handoff against
Carter and Hall on the field at the same time. Wish the Browns would learn that.
Right. So, there's plays out of playbooks like 80 or 90 years old, but they're running them to perfection. And they went into the Packers again, run the sepia tone, the film projector starting up, but that was the kind of day it was. And that was the kind of football that really suited this team. You had Breece Hall after that touchdown doing a Lambeau leap into a little bit of Jets fans, like 8 or 9 Jets fans in Lambeau. You had Sauce Gardner walking off with the cheese head on his, and he almost had a pick six to start this game going. It actually bounced off the ground. So they kind of set the tone that they were going to do this. So this team, again, for fantasy, I hope if you believed in Breece Hall, wow, congratulations. If you believed in this team, I don't think anybody sees, I don't think anyone saw it happening like this.
No.
But still, hey, fantasy is weird. Fantasy karma is weird. And guess who the Jets are going to play next, Cecil? Your Denver Broncos.
Yeah, so they've got all that fire going into the Mile High City. That's right. And just look at how they believe in each other. The Hall touchdown.
Yeah.
Look at how Garrett Wilson comes over and that's a guy that had
they
one.
They just want to win. They don't care about stats.
Dude had one catch. He's over there celebrating like they won the Super Bowl, but it's infectious, man.
Family.
Robert Saleh. He's the man. He is the man. Oh, we got to talk about Green Bay.
Yeah.
I suppose. Aaron Rodgers is pissed. 26-41, 246 yards, 1 touchdown, no INTs. Jordan Love got into the game. Robert Tonyan, 10 for 90. Alan Lazard, 4 for 76 and a touch. And Romeo Doubs, 4 for 21. 9 targets, though. A long of 8. That's not good enough. Randall Cobb gets banged up in this one. It's so bad they're throwing to Juwan Winfrey. I like Juwan, but still, like, that tells you where they're at. A.J. Dillon, 10 for 41. Aaron Jones, 9 for 19. And again, at halftime, this was 3-3.
Yeah.
It was 17-10 after the third quarter. Plenty of time to run the ball. And yet Green Bay doesn't. The Jets win, and Rodgers is pissed.
Yeah. They gave up 2 blocked punts, I think a blocked field goal. You had a Rodgers fumble on a handoff. You just had a miserable Randall Cobb goes out with an ankle injury now, but this is going to be an inefficient offense. So cease the question here, the story here, we'll talk about this when we get to our Steelers too, is you have this veteran quarterback and you think, okay, well, as long as it's not falling apart around him, he can make something out of it. It's Aaron Rodgers. He can make something out of it. We're still waiting. We're waiting. The deep passing game is just not coming around. It's not coming around. And because of that, it's nothing else is clicking for this offense. Yes, you finally got a Lazard touchdown. Robert Tonyan got a lot of targets, but that's your struggle target because this offense is struggling. And Aaron Jones, A.J. Dillon, it's week 6 now. And I say, oh, the Jets are a better team than the Packers. The Jets are a better team than the Packers. This season is going to really challenge folks because we're a third of the way into the NFL regular season, a third-ish, 6 out of 19. And you have to just look at what you're seeing as the representation of these teams now. We can't say it's just the preseason. It's just the teams are rusty, didn't play in the preseason and things like that. And this offense is just not coming around. And it's a limiting factor on everybody in the offense. They're going to play Washington next week. That's going to be a real test because Washington is the kind of defense that Aaron Rodgers, again, kind of like Bailey Zappi against Cleveland. Like, come on. There's going to be stuff there that should work even with minor league AAA type talents in your offense. But at the same time, you wonder because this is, is Aaron Rodgers at this point in his career, is he going to reinvent himself like Patrick Mahomes did, like Joe Burrow is right now? I don't think so. Yeah, he's going to keep taking those deep shots that are not working. So, yeah, there's problems. There's problems. Again, who would think that at this point in the season, we would be looking at Green Bay, not even as a team that might not win their division, might not even make the playoffs, because the other thing is that, of course, the defense. And I understand, just like for San Francisco, the task was a little different today, but you have to be flexible, multiple, like Byron Leftwich said. And some of these defenses are showing that they just aren't going to be able to hang whenever the spotlight's on them. And the Jets had a full win. I think that's going to make them feel like they can go into any place and win.
I'll sound like Jules from Pulp Fiction. It's about personality. Personality goes a long way with me, but teams take on the personality of their head coach or their quarterback. Mm-hmm. We know what the Jets are doing with Robert Saleh, and we know what the Packers are doing with Aaron Rodgers. It's not a great personality. Okay, we are moving on from the Jets doing their thing to the Colts building momentum, 2 in a row for the You can't break up the Indianapolis Colts, ladies and gentlemen. Oh boy. All right, they get the win over Jacksonville. Jacksonville hasn't swept them since 2017, and you thought at some point they were going to do it, Bloom. Mm-hmm. And then they fall short. 34-27 the final score. Colts win. Jaguars lose. Jags quarterback Trevor Lawrence goes 20-22, 163, 1 touchdown, no INT. Look at all these quarterback numbers today, Bloom.
Right.
Zay Jones 5 for 42, Evan Ingram 5 for 40, Christian Kirk 4 for 24. That late touchdown. Travis Etienne 10 for 86, and getting it done there. And then we see 2 for 22 as a receiver. You see on that big 48-yard run. Honestly, I thought he was going to score on that one. Jermichael Hasty gets a rushing touchdown. Trevor Lawrence gets 2 rushing touchdowns. James Robinson stopped at the goal line. 12 for 54. Also a catch for 1 yard there. So Jacksonville puts up a fight. It looks like they're going to win, but they just can't close it. Those 15 fourth quarter points for the Colts put them over the top.
Yeah, this felt like this offense, this is about all you can ask out of it, right? Like 27 points. That's not going to hold up for the Jags. They're not going to win. And the defense hasn't been doing them any favors. It's a limited offense, but they did what they could with what they have. And a lot of that is ETN breaking off some longer runs. Now, you had a wildcat snap to him on 1st and goal. He got smothered, just leveled, really. Like you said, Robinson got stopped at the goal line. You had those rushing touchdowns, those sneaks. So there was a touchdown or 2 to pass around. Agnew was stopped at the goal line. But at the same time, you can see it's a very short passing game. And unless there's a lot of targets for a Zay Jones or a Christian Kirk, yes, it was working a little earlier this year. It's not working now. Even Evan Ingram. This is, again, Cecil, there wasn't really much to get out of this offense for fantasy, unless you happen to put Trevor Lawrence in and he got those 2 sneaks, but that's fluky. And this was a decent day for them. It wasn't like it was a down day. So who are we going to trust? Who are we going to put in this offense? I don't know. I thought this team was good a few weeks ago when they went into LA and thumped the Chargers. But now they're going to play the Giants. This is the Coughlin Bowl, right? The Giants actually good? I thought Jacksonville was actually good on both sides of the ball. They're just I can't remember another season where teams have shown us so many sides of how things can go for them. And we just, I guess, have to trust the most recent one. But next week will probably give us another shuffle of the cards.
Yeah, another shuffling around. Matt Ryan, though, very consistent with turnovers and peppering running backs. Although today, he didn't have a turnover today.
No.
There you go. All right. Way to go, Matt Ryan. Progress from the 20-year veteran. 42 of 58, 389 yards, 3 touchdowns, no INTs. Michael Pittman, 13 for 134. That's a struggle target, to be sure. Deion Jackson, speaking of struggle target, 10 targets, 10 catches, 79 yards for Jackson as a receiver. Jackson as a runner, 12 for 42 and a touchdown. Jonathan Taylor, I'm not going to say no problem, but they just didn't really lean on the ground game. 58 passes for Matt Ryan. That's what they did. Paris Campbell, 7 for 57 and a touch. Alec Pierce, 3 for 49 and a touch. Jelani Woods, touchdown hog, 2 for 27 and 1 there. Kylan Granson, 4 for 38. Did you see them use that tight end pair? And they get the win. So they build some momentum. They're learning about themselves, Bloom. And what do we learn about Frank Reich and the Colts? Well, they always start slow, and then they kind of get it.
Yeah, they're survivors. This is a game. I think the big takeaway here is Matt Ryan led fourth quarter comeback drive, hitting Alec Pierce on that touchdown. And for fantasy, and again, does Frank Reich really want him throwing the ball 58 times? No, come on, no. So what's reproducible about this? Well, I mean, Michael Pittman looks good in a typical game. Maybe that's more like an 8 for 80 line, the kind of efficiency and how he was doing out there.
Are those 10 targets to Jackson long handoffs? I mean, in a
right.
way.
Sure. But, if it was that easy, why wouldn't every team do it? Because it's just Deion Jackson, a nondescript talent out of Duke, and it's great. And we'll talk about it on the waiver wire show. Jonathan Taylor will be back. Because that's the other thing, right? When Jonathan Taylor's back, you're having that balance on offense. And really, that's the forward-facing front of this offense is Jonathan Taylor. Still, you like that there's confidence here. Obviously, confidence throwing the ball to Pittman, throwing the ball to Jackson out of the backfield, Paris Campbell. And it still didn't come easy. There were a lot of field goals, a lot of settling for field goals or a field goal because of an intentional grounding and things like that. Paris Campbell had to reach the ball out to the pylon on his touchdown. Jelani Woods, now Matt Ryan has something here because Jelani Woods he's a rookie, he did the NFL push off. And I'm sorry, it's a skill, man. If you can keep your hands inside of the jersey and keep your arm extended, like just with like ever so subtly, not completely straightening your arm. That's always what the refs are looking for, right? Just have that elbow, but just a little bit. And you can pull that off. That's a skill. And it just came naturally to him. And you can see with the touchdowns Woods and Ali Cox are getting, maybe that's what Matt Ryan needs. Is just throw it into that power forward and let him post up on those close in passes. It didn't come easy, but they got the touchdowns and then Alec Pierce downfield. So you have Campbell, Pierce, Pittman, all fantasy relevant here. Deion Jackson, of course. Congratulations to anybody who depended on him when it was announced on Saturday that Taylor and Hines are going to be out. And this is a surviving team against another surviving team that's on bye this week, Tennessee. That's your AFC South. Who's going to survive? And that may be a tougher out than we think at home in the first round of the playoffs because, well, they know how to survive.
Yeah, they do. And Deion Jackson, you already missed your window. You had 2 games.
It wasn't really much of a window. It was like when you play Frogger on really hard mode. It's just too fast.
Can we pick him up and then shut him down in the same show?
Yeah, it's like a maneuver, like something you do in the dunk contest.
Something like that, right? Throw it up to yourself. Mm-hmm. Let's move on. And oh man, I was so watching this. And not only was I watching this game, Bloom, this sounds terrible, but I'll say it anyway. I was watching my stock portfolio of Skylar Thompson rookie cards.
Oh, yeah.
And that took a dive.
You got to replace him with Bailey Zappi rookie cards.
Yeah, I don't like Bailey Zappi. Anyway, 24-16, the final score. The Vikings get the win over the Miami Dolphins. We'll get to the Dolphins in a little bit, but Kirk Cousins does enough. 20 of 30, 175, 2 touchdowns, no INTs. Dalvin Cook, 13 for 77 and a rushing touchdown. Justin Jefferson sprung to life, although early on, him and Xavier Howard going back and forth. That was great. 6 for 107. Jefferson finally ends with Adam Thielen gets in the end zone. 4 for 36 and a touch. Irv Smith, 4 for 7 and a touchdown there as well. And here's your KJ Osborne stock, about as good as my Skylar Thompson rookie cards. 3 for 18. But the Vikings find a way and they pull away. And Mike McDaniel, you're getting a little too cute with some things. We'll talk about it in a little bit, but let's get the Vikings out of the way.
Yeah. From a fantasy standpoint, at least in terms of results, this isn't that interesting. I mean, 6 for 107. That's a quiet day for Jefferson. That's a day where he gets contained for part of the day. 6 for 107. You got a touchdown out of Thielen, a touchdown out of Smith. You got that clinching 53-yard touchdown out of Dalvin Cook. So it was actually a really quiet offensive day. The first four drives are 3 and outs for the Vikings. It was not a very auspicious day for them, but you do get Jefferson going. You do have some talent that you leverage. The main thing, Cecil, I want to talk about here is just this team is 5-1. And they're not. Look, there was a point in this game. I'll jump to the Miami side just briefly. There's a point in this game where it looked like Miami was driving down to tie the game or take the lead, and Jalen Waddle fumbled. Miami was right here in this game. Don't think about the score or anything like that. The Vikings weren't clearly better, but you win a road game. You beat a Miami team, and see, here's another team that's had 2 complete seasons already. They're making quarterback changes within games way too often, much more than they would want to. And I don't know what to make out of Miami because you could feel in the stadium they want to believe they're returning back to something. And Tua will be returning next week. We'll see where that goes. Yeah. But at the same time, like you said, Cecil, I think Mike McDaniel getting a little cute with it, and whatever momentum this team had from the Buffalo game is tiny in the rearview mirror.
Right. You don't have to prove that you're the smartest guy in the room all the time. Sometimes you just play. And this fake punt and all this sort of stuff. And Skylar Thompson going down. What'd they call it, Bloom? Finger?
Thumb.
Thumb. For young Skylar. Stop me if you've heard this before, because I always get the question like, why did Skylar Thompson fall in the draft? He's hurt all the time. He was hurt all the time. So Skylar Thompson's hurt again. Shocker. And it's disappointing, Bloom, because in that game, like, there were so many drop passes. Because what was he, a 50% passer, 7-13 for 89 yards? But there were drop passes on big plays that would have moved the chains and kept drives alive. We could have seen more of Skylar Thompson, and then nothing. So here comes Teddy Bridgewater, throws a couple touchdowns, throws a couple picks, throws for 329 yards. That's never what you want, but Tyreek Hill's what you want. 12 for 177. It's working. Jalen Waddle, 6 for 129. Mike Gesicki, 6 for 69 and 2 touchdowns. And his second touchdown, Bloom, I'm going to sound like the get off my lawn grandpa Simpson shaking his hand at the cloud, but like he's doing whatever dance. I don't know, Bloom.
Only turn, Hey, the gritty started in New Orleans.
Okay.
Right? So if you aren't going to do it.
I thought it was the gritty, but I just didn't want to be wrong and then have people chirp me up.
Right.
Like,
You're old.
Whatever. Yeah, I'm old. It's some dance that the kids do off of Fortnite or whatever. And it's like, dude, you're down. Like, you're down. Like, he did it all the way across the back of the end zone. He did it up the sidelines until he got to his coaches. It's like, hey, Gesicki, calm down, buddy. Calm down. Once you get a win,
like you've been there.
Get a win, then you can take your shirt off like Antonio Brown, right? Spin around your head like a helicopter. There you go. Raheem Mostert, 14-49. Just nothing here other than Tyreek and Jalen, 6 for 129, and Gesicki, like I said, they use Chase Edmonds. Right. But anyway, Bloom, I'm mostly disappointed because I didn't get to see a full game of Skylar Thompson, which I was looking forward to.
It was looking all right at first.
They want to believe like they're the Jets, like the Jets believe. You see it with the Dolphins, like they want it. What? Not
then fake punt and all these things. Look, Skylar Thompson comes out. They have a drive to open the game. And he gets sacked out of field goal range. And another drive where I think they went into field goal range and had a penalty to knock them out like 3 times in one drive. That was the kind of day it was. But still, they're hanging around. They're fine. Skylar Thompson gets hurt. And then you see, and the good news here for fantasy, if there's a takeaway here for fantasy, that at least Teddy's going to let it fly. So now we'll see about Tua. Tua, they were keeping, except for that game against Baltimore, the attempts were staying lower. But the running game didn't really bail them out in this one. So you saw Tyreek Hill with a big game. You saw Jalen Waddle with a big game. And again, they were driving to tie or maybe take the lead in the game late, and Waddle fumbled. It was a real momentum breaker. But you also had a momentum breaker. Not that there was momentum, but you created negative momentum with that fake punt to open the second half. I mean, it's just one of those things like, and
they're immediately in field goal range.
There's a time and place for a fake punt. This is a Thursday night kind of topic, as we say around here. This is just maybe we could do a podcast once on just in the off season, like when should you fake punt? Because there's a time and place for it, but it's like 1/10, like 10% of the time coaches think they should do it. I mean, no, not to open the second half against the Minnesota Vikings in a game that was very, very manageable. So we'll see. I mean, how are we going to know next week Miami goes to Pittsburgh? And I guess Tua is going to start. And I don't know. We're going to talk about Pittsburgh season. I don't know what to say about Pittsburgh. We have a podcast and I don't know what to say.
It's shocking.
Right.
Write down the date and the time. Write down the date and the time when we're talking about Bengals and Saints up next. Yeah. And the Bengals win. They win. Scoreboard says they win, but I don't know. The Bengals are confusing, man. They're really, really confusing. This whole season, what's up is down, what's down is up. 30-26, the final score. Bengals 3-3, Saints 2-4. And Joe Burrow, 3 touchdowns, no INT, 300 yards exactly. And you saw Jamar Chase, 7 for 132 and 2 touchdowns. I think it was his first one, Bloom, that was so sweet. It was like between 2 defenders, like the smallest of windows, and Chase hauls it in. Tyler Boyd, 6 for 66. Devil get out. T. Higgins, 6 for 47. Joe Mixon, 4 for 23 and a receiving touchdown. Also 8 for 45 on the ground. Burrow had a rushing touchdown as well to benefit his fantasy day. So they did it, and they did it by abandoning the run.
Yeah.
And again, 20-14 at half. 20-14 at half. So winner team's going to realize, you can still run. Anyway, they win.
Yeah. They win. And you're seeing that continue metamorphosis into the the offense to beat cover 2 defenses. So again, more short passing. We saw more Tyler Boyd, not as much Hayden Hurst with T. Higgins up, but Higgins still used mostly in the short passing game. Maybe not 100%, but had the participation you're looking for, and it's kind of a floor game for him. Ceiling game for Jamar Chase. And so we should have known, Cease. We should have known. Whenever Joe Burrow shows up to the Superdome in a Jamar Chase jersey, you should have known. And look, some of the stuff about the Joe Burrow story is just too on the nose, right? It'd be too obvious if you wrote this story. You're a writer, Cease. It's a little too obvious. But I think there's just something about the way the lighting hits his hair and the way that he carries himself, this classic cigar picture where it is going to be straight. It's by the book, these Joe Burrow stories. But what you see is just that classic ability to make the way the defense has to engage him, and this is the same team he's doing at LSU, just slightly asymmetrical. So he can engage defenses outside of their preferred format and make those plays, and not necessarily trying to score those long touchdowns, but still keeping drives alive. Like you said, the rushing touchdown was like 19 yards. That's picking your spot because you're Joe Burrow. You don't want to get leveled, and he was just inspired. It was an inspired performance by Jamar Chase breaking a few tackles on his way down on the 60-yard touchdown that basically ended the game. You saw him fight to get a big third down. And you saw these moments where the Saints were getting to Burrow, but you also saw a classic Saints roughing the passer penalty to extend a drive that ends in a touchdown. And their defense is bend but don't break. We'll talk about that in a second. But hey, you come down to the Superdome and you win. Then Joe Burrow back in the bosom of Southeast Louisiana seats, and it was like we root for Joe Burrow every day except today, maybe even a little bit today because of the way he played and the way he reminds you of how he can elevate this team. And see, isn't this the story for Bengals fans, right? You have on one sideline Joe Burrow making the plays, elevating his team. On the other sideline, Andy Dalton. I don't want to knock Andy Dalton too much, but in the end, it was the difference between those two players that was the outcome of this game. Yeah.
Right. It's like when your ex-girlfriend starts dating Adonis and you're just like, nah, I'm not that. Yeah. I can never be that.
Yeah.
But you try. Andy Dalton, the A for effort.
Yeah.
And 17 to 32, 162 yards, 1 touchdown, no INTs. Traquan Smith with the run, 1 touchdown, of course. 343 and touch. Juwan Johnson, 4 for 41. Marquez Callaway, 6 for 36. Nobody's starting these players. You started out with Kamara, 19 for 99 on the ground. And then 6 for 25 as receiver there. And then Rashid Shaheed, the coolest name in all of football. Rashid Shaheed getting 1 rush, 44 yards, and 1 touchdown. Very rarely do we talk about Weber State, Bloom.
Right.
But Rashid Shaheed, everybody's favorite now, gets that rushing touchdown. Saints fall short in this one. By the way, Taysom Hill, your Taysom Hill summer stock, doesn't have a lot this week.
Yeah. I think Weber State, when they were a 14 seed, beat North Carolina once. Harold the Show Arsenault. I don't know. My brain tells me things like, you sure, brain? Like, we'll find out. Everyone tell me later whether I was right about that. Anyway, on one hand, Cease, to hang this close without your top 3 receivers, a very commonplace theme. It's a moral victory. I mean, it was, a Super Bowl team last year. But on the other hand, you feel like the effort was there for them to get the win here. It just didn't happen. Andy Dalton, again, you were just reminded of his limitations, right? Lots of field goals, lots of settling for field goals. And when you get the ball back late in the game, he's not going to do it. You just don't feel like, oh, maybe he's not going to do it. And that's just a limiting factor for this team in terms of the bottom line standing. So you wonder, there's a lot for Dennis Allen to think about here with Dalton and Winston. Not really a choice, I guess, you want to have to make if you want to keep keeping your job. It was still the Alvin Kamara offense. Kamara was Adam Troutman gets hurt, a little more Juwan Johnson, if you're really bottom feeding for a tight end. And you just need these wide receivers to be back. And I don't know, at quarterback. We'll see next week against Arizona, which should be a game that allows their offense to get something more going, because there was some Taysom Hill running. Rashid Shaheed scored on just, I think, a basic end around. It showed tremendous speed. But, these are the kinds of things they have to do to create consistent offense with Andy Dalton and their number 4 and 5 and 6 wide receivers out there. Alvin Kamara can only do so much.
He can only do so much, and so much for The Baltimore Ravens. Part of me is so happy when the Ravens lose, Bloom. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I'm bitter that way.
It's ingrained in you, though.
But the Giants, man, the Giants. 24-20, the final score. Giants over the Baltimore Ravens. It's fantastic for the Giants. FedEx guy that always delivers comic books to me. He's a big Giants fan from back east. And I remember after the draft, he's like, tell me about Wan'Dale Robinson. It's like, the kid's a playmaker. More on Wan'Dale in just a little bit, but let's talk about the playmaker for the Baltimore Ravens. That is Lamar Jackson. Not getting enough today in the 24-20 loss to the Giants, but Jackson goes 17 of 32, 210, 1 touchdown, 1 INT. It was Mark Andrews, 7 for 106 and a touch. Isaiah Likely, 2 for 32. There, we'll continue to watch him. Nobody else did anything else that would be remarkable. Or it's time to start Devin Duvernay. Nope. Kenyon Drake, though. I guess it's Kenyon Drake time. 10 for 119 and a touchdown. Okay. Catch for 8 yards as well. All right. Not time to get on the Gus bus yet, but Drake, they dust him off and give more carries than J.K. Dobbins in this one. And again, Bloom, stop me if you've heard this before, except this is opposite. They had the lead at halftime.
Yeah.
They ran 24 times. Yeah, they had the lead in the fourth quarter. You ran 24 times, and 7 of them are your quarterback. Like, you could run a little more. You could.
Yeah. Anyway. Yeah. Again, this Ravens team they're not going to change back to the Ravens team that have that dominant running game. I don't know if it's offensive line.
Even with the Gus bus.
Not the running game that sets the tone. It's Lamar Jackson setting the tone with him just doing whatever he can do. It was an okay fantasy day, but you can tell after that amazing roaring start out of the gate for him, for fantasy, he's not really an advantage right now. And then with J.K. Dobbins, you thought, okay, we're going to ramp up the snaps and touches now, right? Yeah, no. And in fact, again, it's Kenyon Drake looking much more spry, reversing field and taking advantage of whatever there is to take advantage of. You think it would be easier with Lamar Jackson to create a running game, but they continue to have problems doing that. And there wasn't really even much in the passing game here, except for Mark Andrews. And this is one for me to say, well, I was wrong. And, the indicator, and I know I said a few times, maybe I'm wrong if Lamar Jackson looks at the games, he was watching the games, he was there whenever Tyler Huntley, Josh Johnson were just targeting Mark Andrews at will, and Andrews kept converting. And Lamar Jackson now, because there's not much else, especially without Rashad Bateman out there, there's not much else. So yeah, and Mark Andrews is doing it, and I don't think that's going to change greatly, especially with the running game not getting on track. Devin Duvernay, just went sour on the shelf. Going into this week, you thought you were going to see more, and some of this is, again, this is the Giants. It's the same talent, same players that were kind of going through the motions as the season went on. And on defense, even though they lost their defensive coordinator to Las Vegas, they're making plays. And it was Kayvon Thibodeau making the biggest play against the Baltimore offense. And again, a turnover at the wrong time. And Cecil, going into this week, you say, wow, they've only trailed like this much of games, right? Last play of the game, they could easily be 5-0. It doesn't matter. Your record's your record. Your record's your record. You're 3-3.
Yep.
Doesn't, you go to you try to go, it's like at the pearly gates or something like that. Like, it doesn't matter. The shoulda ones doesn't matter getting into the playoffs, right? It's what actually it was the final outcome. And again, Baltimore questions, Cleveland next week questions, Giants. The only question there is, man, why didn't they pick up the 5th-year option on Daniel Jones?
Prove it.
Yeah.
Daniel Jones, 19 or 27, 173 yards, 2 touchdowns, no INTs in this one. Daniel Bellinger, San Diego State Aztecs, baby, 5 for 38 and a touch. Wan'Dale Robinson, 3 for 37 and a touch. And man alive, you always talk about water bug receivers, Bloom, right? Wan'Dale, one of those.
Tough, really tough in the middle of the field.
Electric, explosive, like a blur at times. You're like, oh my God, get him the ball. And nobody else got the ball except for Saquon Barkley, 22 for 83, 1 touchdown. Matt Breida, 3 for -6. It's a bad day. But anyway, it's all about Barkley with this team, but they've built momentum. And just like the Vikings, you are what your record is.
Yeah.
So way to go, Giants.
You watch this team and you just don't see a lot of missed opportunities. Obviously they have the worst wide receiver room in the league, right? Daniel Jones, he has his qualities, but he's still limited, especially with these wide receivers. They have a young set of tackles. I think Andrew Thomas got banged up today. They do have Saquon Barkley, But Saquon Barkley didn't do anything where he just took over the game today. They just made the most of their opportunities, right? Gary Brightwell has a kickoff return. Darius Slayton gets a pass interference penalty, but then makes a catch downfield. Daniel Jones. The one thing, even going back to Duke, he will stare down the barrel, know that he's going to get lit up, and make the throw, and not shorten up his follow through, not step into the throw. And he did that on a pass key drive to Wan'Dale Robinson. Even after Marcus Johnson dropped the ball in the end zone, he found Wan'Dale Robinson for the touchdown there. Daniel Bellinger getting a touchdown. Maybe there's something there as he continues to grow up. This is a diverse offense. I think that you see crisp execution. I think, see, I don't want to say it's an offense that's playing over its head. It's playing over its head personnel wise, but I think that you have a team that is really all on the same page. And look, Daniel Jones. We've talked a lot about Daniel Jones on this show. Okay, and Barkley got a little banged up. Just watch that with the shoulder. I mean, he still looks good, but you wonder
He's
how
banged
long.
up coming into this one.
Yeah, exactly. But see, even the stodgiest quarterback evaluator would say fourth quarter comebacks are a pretty good yardstick for a quarterback, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, don't tell me what you did in the first three quarters. When it's one drive and you have to make plays for us to win the game, do you make the plays? Daniel Jones has done that 4 times this year already. It's only week 6. And see, that creates belief, confidence again.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to play Jacksonville next week. So, Jones' numbers, not great for fantasy. They weren't using him as a runner as much by design, but that could still be there. But see, it's just more as a leader and a player who take on the personality of your quarterback, right? I think this team is confident that they're going, not just Daniel Jones, but they're all going to make the plays. Kayvon Thibodeau, they're all going to make the plays in the moment when the game shines the spotlight on them and says, it's your moment. Are you going to step into the spotlight or are you going to shy away from it?
Fit.
Yeah.
This dirty secret in the NFL is fit.
Yeah, family, right? Is your family a dysfunctional family or is it a love family?
And look at how Brian Daboll, and I know we're giving Daniel Jones a lot of love, which we should, Bloom.
Yeah.
I think at the end of the day, they're going to create some success and then be like, we can only go so far with Daniel Jones, and however they change it, they'll change it. But look at what Brian Daboll is doing. He could have easily put Daniel Jones in a situation where it's like, hey, we got to get rid of this guy.
Right.
He could have easily done that. Reminds me of when Sean McDermott took over. Speaking of, the Bills tree, right? When Sean McDermott took over and he had that, every new coach gets like a pass kind of the first year, unless you're Nathaniel Hackett and you just suck. But look at what Hackett's doing with Russell Wilson, who can still play even though he's hurt. And then look at what you're getting for Brian Daboll out of Daniel Jones.
Well, Cecil, I'll stack on top of that, right? Because you have, and this is going to be a beautiful transition. You have coaches going into the season with quarterbacks that you're saying, well, maybe this isn't going to be any more than the last year of this quarterback, maybe even as a starter in the league, right? And look at what these teams like the Jets have done, what Atlanta has done, and what the Giants have done. And maybe, we faulted the Steelers for doing that with Mitchell Trubisky, but then today Mitchell said, hey, I can do it too.
Yeah, I can do it too. That is a perfect transition. Radio professional, podcast professional.
Yeah, if there's such a thing, there is such a thing now. The kids, they don't know anymore that before this you had to actually be professional and prepared and do all kinds of things. You can just show up and talk and say, I don't know what to say. There, I said something.
Yeah, put it on the board. 20-18. The Steelers get the win over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Tommy Brady is unhappy, and the Buccaneers are 3-3. The Steelers are 2-4, and Brady goes 25 of 40, 243, 1 touchdown, no INT, sacked 2 times, under pressure all day long, and his pressure percentage I think was the lowest in the league. Bloom, correct me if I'm wrong. And then he goes out in this one, gets hit 5 times. So the Steelers defense definitely getting after it. And then you saw Leonard Fournette, 21-63. All right. They're trying to slow down that rush, right? Chris Godwin, 6 for 95. Mike Evans, 4 for 42 in this one. It was Leonard Fournette with 6 for 38 as a receiver and a receiving touchdown. Cade Otton, not much there. A couple catches. Russell Gage, a couple catches. And what was that one touchdown? Like, it was out of bounds or whatever. He went after him a couple of times in the end zone. It didn't work, obviously, as the Buccaneers fall short, and now they've got their own questions to answer going forward.
They do. I guess it's a good thing they play in the NFC South. I mean, I guess just by maybe it's Atlanta. I don't know, because this is a costly loss. I guess the lasting image from this one is Brady yelling at his offensive line on the bench.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the same thing we're saying with Aaron Rodgers, where you go into the season, you say, yeah, there's injuries on the offensive line. Yeah, the wide receiver's not totally healthy, but it's Tom Brady. He'll make the most of it. Tom Brady will make the most of whatever is around him. But he's frustrated. And he's not playing badly, but nothing is coming easy. And even against the Steelers defense, you talk about a gutsy win for the Steelers. No Minkah Fitzpatrick and their top 3 corners are all out against Tom Brady. And they win, and they win in great part due to some really tough defense. The run defense, reminiscent of old Steeler run defenses, where it's not just about stopping the play, but it's punishing the players, right? It's taking the opportunity. If I get to clash with you, right? Because this was the problem with some of these defenses, like facing Atlanta. Like, oh, I've got to clash with you. Oh, I don't like that. I want to dance with a wide receiver. I want to rush the passer, right? The Steelers return to relishing the clash as a defender and saying, good, we're running the ball. Good. I'm going to get to light you up. And it was something to behold. Really, again, a team, I think, finding their identity somewhere else than necessarily what the 2022 NFL seemed to dictate. Godwin was okay. Evans didn't make that big play. You're going to have these floor games. And again, the question we have to keep asking about Tampa Bay and Green Bay is, okay, is it going to happen week 8, week 9, week 10? It's going to all start to come together and you're going to have all these buy lows? Or is this just how it's going to be? I mean, are these offenses kind of like jalopies that are barely staying on the road right now? You did see Cameron Brate go down in a kind of scary scene with probably a second concussion. Probably not going to see him for a while. So Cade Otton is going to get opportunity there. We'll talk about him on the waiver wire. And we'll see Tampa Bay go to Carolina. And again, I think that at a few points in the season, you say, well, okay, Tampa Bay is actually good. Tampa Bay is actually good, and they're going to get better. I don't know now. He lost to the Steelers, and it wasn't because of Kenny Pickett.
Mm-hmm. Wasn't because of Kenny Pickett. There's something I could say about being counterculture, Bloom, but I don't think the Steelers are necessarily being counterculture in today's NFL. They're just being themselves.
Yeah.
Like this is who.
Isn't that always how counterculture starts, though, Cease?
It should be, right? Right. I think you and I are both big fans of that. But let's talk about the Steelers and how they got it done. Kenny Pickett, ladies and gentlemen. And you see the energy, right? Now Pickett's knocked out of this game, but you see the energy. And Deontay Johnson, I swear he's the Plexico Burress. Not as big as Plexico, but it's like you throw it to him, he's going to drop it. Throw it on the numbers, he's going to drop it. You throw above his head, he's going to sky and do this crazy catch and come down. And like, how did he catch that? Oh, because you just threw it where he couldn't get it and he went and got it. Because Deontay has those problems. But you see more now of the Steelers going to Najee Harris, 14-42, but it was Jalen Warren. It was early in the game, Bloom, that 4th and 1.
Yeah, they went to him, not Harris.
Yeah, and not Harris. So Jalen Warren still getting some work, only a couple carries today, but some work. But look at this, 29 carries and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 players ran the ball. 29 carries. And you had 30 passing attempts by both quarterbacks, because here comes Mitch Trubisky, 9 for 12, 144 yards, touchdown. Chase Claypool, 7 for 96 in the touch. Najee Harris got the receiving touchdown as well. Connor Hayward, talked about Pops a little earlier, 2 for 49 in this contest. So the Steelers win. And again, they kind of do it their old way, the ugly way.
Yeah. Well, maybe they heard us talking about their draft position all week. Maybe that was why they felt like they had to come out here and make a statement. And again, it's only 6 weeks into the season. I mean, it's enough for us to have this set of data points about these teams, but all we really have is let's put more weight on the last game or two, at least in the term of directions the teams are going, and whatever's going to determine how these divisions. And Cecil, it really is Pete Rozelle somewhere smiling. And I don't know if I like it as much as I thought I would whenever I first heard the word parity in the NFL, because especially when our job, we're supposed to make it sound like, well, these things are happening because of observable trends that we can quantify and we can get you out ahead of. It's a little more difficult. Now, Kenny Pickett, like you said, at least is invigorating this offense. It just gives you a sense of potential and hope every time the Steelers have the ball, in contrast to how it was with Mitchell Trubisky earlier in the year. And you see the Steelers are just resourceful. And what you like is early in the, like you said, Cease, early in the game going on 4th down. That's not Mike Tomlin. Mike Tomlin says take the points. They went for it. Jalen Warren gets it. and then Pickett to Najee Harris, a beautiful play executed well. You had a Chris Boswell 55-yarder off the crossbar. It hit the crossbar, bounced straight, but went over. You had Steven Sims a kickoff return. They had to settle for a field goal, and that's when Pickett gets hurt. And Trubisky comes in, and maybe it is the spirit of Ironhead Hayward, Pittsburgh, all these connections, right? Connor Hayward with the play, I think, that calmed everyone down. Because, like, oh, man, it was 13-12. Pickett was out. The Steelers were still in the lead. But then you saw, and by the way, the Steelers defense also had a big stop. It was 2018, was a 2-point conversion, really the margin of victory. The Steelers get that margin of victory. But you really love seeing that. And real quick, I want to say about Ironhead Hayward, because I before I went to Syracuse for college, Pitt was my jam when it came to basketball and football. Ironhead Hayward is one of the most likable football stars, right? He was the guy who made it okay for all of us men to use the poofy thing in the shower, right?
The loofah.
Right? Yeah. The loofah. Yeah.
Was it Dial? Was it what commercials were that?
Yeah,
something
I don't
like
remember
that.
what it was, but he's just like, we're hanging out with Ironhead Hayward in the shower. And you see Mitchell Trubisky. Yes, Mitchell Trubisky light the fuse of one Chase Claypool in this game. Mitchell Trubisky, it's 3rd and 16. Oh, well, we're going to punt. No, we're going to convert. Oh, another 3rd and long. Okay, well, at least they ran the clock some more. Defense got some more time to get a breather. No, Chase Claypool says, no, we're going to win this game. We're going to win this game. Now, we'll see about Pickett and the concussion, again, playing Miami next week. At least, I just think the team, Mitchell Trubisky looks like a different quarterback than he did before Kenny Pickett replaced him. It's infectious, right? Can we say that in 2022? But the point is that this team is changing. All of these teams are continuing to change, Cecil. And again, I come back to an insight, and I don't know if it's just that I'm getting older and seeing things clearer, and this is what has been apparent to so many people for so long, but it feels like the NFL more than ever is emotional. And again, for fantasy for Pittsburgh, we were looking forward to Kenny Pickett throwing the ball a ton like maybe he would have if he hadn't gotten hurt. But for the Steelers, this is much more a sign of a track they want to be on. But you're seeing these teams not just in terms of like X's and O's and output and how they do against the spread or whatever metric you want to use, but it's just are they having a good day? Are they feeling that? It really, I come back to the idea of family, right? The idea of accountability, the idea of
emotion, togetherness.
I've got your back, right? Like what happens to one of us happens to all of us, and you see it's like a developing story, and we're riding it week to week, and it's making it much more difficult to project and predict the outcomes of these games. But I think it also, we get frustrated by that, or we're just thinking of it in terms of what I got right and what I got wrong, because that's what we do in this business, right? I don't want it to obscure this larger spectacle of just the emotional power of players that believe in each other, and coaches that believe in the players, and players that believe in the coaches, and trust, and all these things. And it makes for outcomes that seem like surprises, but I think it also illustrates something that shows what the real heart of football is.
And find those players that make you feel that way.
Yeah.
And not the players that make you feel opposite. Russell Wilson. Do I have some tea for you, Bloom, that I cannot share on air? So let's wrap this thing up. Sorry, everybody. Maybe I'll drop some hints, but I apologize in advance for what the Broncos aren't going to do on Monday night. But anyway, it is the Audible's Week 6 recap. He's Sigmund Bloom. I'm Cecil Lammey. YouTube things. I know it's annoying, but we really appreciate it, and it does help the channel. So like, comment, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell so that you never miss a vid. Mainly, we just care about you. We care about our community. Obviously, we love football. You love football too. So please help us out. As always, be safe, be kind, know that you are appreciated. Stay tuned and stay frosty.